What is it to be in relationship to my own pleasure when it's not about another person? Oh, the longest relationship we're going to have in our life is with ourselves.
What does it require for us to live from a place of love, to deepen our capacity to love, to deepen our capacity to both receive and give love? And oftentimes we there's like layers of the past that get piled on our heart and our body mind in a way that we can't actually be in a place of kind of feeling the world around us, which stifles us from our feelings of belonging, right? One of the things I love about your work is the process that you take people through to help, particularly women, take women through a process of kind of unmasking and peeling back those layers through a period of cleansing, right? And
Mhm,
you call this the no man diet, if I remember correctly.
mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about this process that you run for women. I've done the kind of analogous version of this for men, a feminine cleanse, but I'd love to just hear from you, a little bit more about what is it? Why is it important?
Yeah. There's so many layers and such a great question. And it is true. So I call it the no man diet. And, it is more like a relational reset or a relational cleanse, if you will. Because certainly, and the container I hold is for women, but certainly women who have gone through who don't identify as heterosexual. And the piece you brought in at the beginning is so important, which is where we are carrying so often pieces from the past and mapping them into the present, and then also sort of rolling them out into the future. Like those things are happening simultaneously. Where and if we can understand that cognitively and psychologically, oh, I know this is from my past and my relationship with my father. And yet the feeling in the present moment is still there, right? So, one of the reasons that I do find something like a no man diet, a feminine cleanse, a masculine cleanse, a relational reset, however you want to call it, so valuable is in some ways, and people do this with food too, right? We're sort of like, oh, I'm having allergenic type reactions. And that it's not that I'm going to eat, only these things forever and ever for the rest of my life, but there's some value to my body in making it very, very simple so that I can start to get to the heart of, oh, what is actually happening in this body? And so relationally is very similar. Women ask all the time, like, but why do I have to give up? Can't I do this work like while I'm dating or while I'm in relationship? And it's not that it's impossible. Certainly we can do a lot of work on ourselves in relationship or in, whether that's long-term partnership or whether that's in the dating relational cycle. There is a lot that can be done in that place. And a lot of times it's very muddied by this experience you talked about of like bringing the past into the present and like, wait, what's real? What are my needs? Are they actually showing up for me? Is how I feel valid? Can I ask for, there's all this other stuff going on. And so when we really clear the space and for a period of time say, oh, I'm actually just going to be doing this work with myself, and this very clear process of going through it, what is it to be in relationship to my own pleasure when it's not about another person? What is it actually just to be me and me? This is another note I was writing myself this morning, actually, that was like, oh, the longest relationship we're going to have in our life is with ourselves. And again, I knew I was going to talk to you, and I was like, or we could say the longest relationship we have with our is with God. I can say that with
Hmm.
Luke.
Hmm.
And then I was
Hmm.
like, maybe it's kind of the same. I'm not
Hmm.
saying the relationship with ourselves and the relationship with God is the same per se, but I think the way that we engage, like, oh, what is it actually to say this is the longest relationship I'll be in? And am I actually putting the kind of time, attention, energy, and nurturing into this relationship as I would the person I think I want to spend the rest of my life with? Because I guaranteed I'm going to spend the rest of my life with me. Like that's not up for debate. So, how am I developing that?
Mm,
And
yeah,
then I bring that person into the world, in all the ways that I relate. And that is a very different person.
absolutely. Yeah, I experienced this process shortly after my marriage ended, there was some period of time that was necessary to be dating and kind of be back out there. And then there was a moment that I just felt like that was wholly unsatisfying, and I needed a reset, and I took 6 months.
Mhm.
And the commitment for me, the way that I set this up, was that I was not flirting, I was not dating, I was not in any sort of hooking way of like trying to hook women into my space. And there was obviously no sex, no hand holding, no kissing, no, even at the grocery store. Like I would maybe smile and say hello if someone smiled at me. But other than that, it was very much like there was just a cloak over me. At first, it's pretty confronting. We find all the ways that we habitually use other people to kind of paper over our own insecurities and our feelings of self doubt and shame, and get people kind of wrapped up in our own story, right?
Mhm.
And that's fairly confronting. But once we kind of break through that, for me, it was maybe a month or so when I could kind of snap out of all those patterns. There's a way in which as you say, like the relationship to self deepens pretty quickly. And
Mhm.
for me, I was also spending a lot of time outside in nature. And so I was able to start to just kind of digest all of these patterns of the past and start to really nourish myself, and through the land, through the earth, through connection to the stars at night. And
Mhm.
I was getting fed in this different way. 6 months went by, in some
Mhm.
ways painfully, excruciatingly slow,
Mhm.
especially when I would see a beautiful woman. But mostly it flew by, and I found myself at the end like not ready, not really ready to like, I was so, it was so kind of soothing to just drop all of those habits. But in the end, it absolutely shifted my relationship to how I was showing up uh, to potential partners, or in a dating situation where I wasn't showing up with so much neediness. I was showing up very well resourced and kind of grounded in my own being.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, so the no man diet is 3 months, and that often
Hmm.
and I'm like, "That is a drop in the bucket of your life." My own no man diet was also 6 months, like yours, and the same, like, there were times it was excruciating. I actually tell this story about how I almost ended it, like, 2 weeks early or something. I sort of had there was this opportunity that arose, and I was like, "I've done like, it's been 6 months. I mean, what's 2 weeks?" And actually how some of the greatest lessons came in that,
Mm,
and actually that I was like, "Oh, fuck, like, that is the thing."
mhm.
So 3 months is like a drop in the bucket, and then that you even brought up the grocery store, I love because I talk about, there's all the obvious things, right? Like, don't be on dating sites, and don't have sex, and don't text your ex, and, these sort of things. And then there's like, oh, I wonder if that, the guy that works behind the meat counter might be there. And like, I'm just sort of, I'm not, I just wanted to put on lipstick for my own sake to go out. It's for my own pleasure to go out to the grocery store, but how we just kind of, do, and all the little things we do. And that again is one of the reasons it's so valuable to really clear the slate, is because we go, oh, not blame, shame, judgment, like self-flagellation about it, but like, oh, look, that's me doing that thing that I'm mostly unconscious of, and I can usually gloss over. And in this cleared space, I can actually be honest with myself that I'm doing that thing, which back in the day of Authentic World, we used to call it the narcissistic hit. It's like, do I exist? Like, do I exist? Like, show me I exist. And what it is to really, again, that sense of belonging, like, oh, I exist. And
Mhm.
yes, I want to be in connection. Yes, humans are pack animals. Like, yes, sex and touch are, normal human wants, needs, and desires. And I already exist.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a really important piece around the pleasure piece. I know for me, when I
Mhm.
went through this experience, and even beyond this experience, to have for this, what I did was, it was a nearly daily practice of self pleasure, of masturbation, right? For men, without ejaculating, ejaculating kind of infrequently. So just pleasure for the sake of pleasure, not for the sake of getting off. And when we grab the kind of locus of our focus of pleasure and stimulation, and take it back into ourselves, and
Mhm.
not project it out onto the world around us and all of the potential people that could participate in that, there's like a really deep kind of mystical opening that can happen in oneself, especially for men if we're practicing semen retention, at least to some level. Not, it doesn't need to be crazy, but like that, our capacity to actually move into deeper states of pleasure in our body, it opens up all sorts of really cool information, and just allows us to feel alive in our body. So when we're, out of bed, not masturbating, we're walking through the forest, we're walking, through the city, everything just kind of pops a little more. I think that was also one of the great benefits, is like no porn, no external focus of my obsession, and to just allow erotic energy to kind of move through me in a very deep way. Is this analogous or equivalent for women?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a whole segment module in the program that's specifically on pleasure. And I do want to say, men in particular in this culture are so trained to not like all the focus of pleasure is like on the cock and that's it. And it can seem, I've definitely worked with men and I hear you speaking to this. It can almost seem like somehow it's cutting off pleasure to broaden out, but it actually is so much more. And I think we really do men a disservice. We tend to say things like men are less sensitive and men feel less and I'm like, this is not my experience of either my son, my own partner or the men that I actually know. I'm like, actually men are very sensitive. Men are very deeply feeling. Men have a huge capacity for pleasure and it's really not taught or talked about, or ways of offering it that are devoid of shame. It's rare. So I know you do that work, and I'm glad, for the people who do, because I think it really hurts all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's the sensitivity of kind of erotic energy, but then there's just the general emotional sensitivity, and those two are intricately linked for me. One, just for those men that are listening, one very clear practice that I found very useful in this regard. It's wild, but set a timer for 30 minutes, self pleasure yourself, and do not ejaculate. And so the purpose is not to get to the end, it's simply to ride the waves of pleasure through your body.
Mm,
And as you do this, and then at the end of the 30 minutes, yes, there's like a little come down period. You got to deal with the blue balls and all of that. But over time, it like deepens your capacity to last longer in actual lovemaking. But you're also just opening yourself up
mm.
to this level of sensitivity. So it's the old timer trick. 30 minutes on the alarm.
Yeah, it's so funny you say timer. I'm a huge fan of time containers. Like I'm
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, just do it for 5 minutes. Yeah, just set a timer. I mean, a timer is like it's the best thing ever. You're like, then set it aside. Don't think about it. Do the thing. But I tell a story in the No Man Diet about when I was on my own No Man Diet, where I had also set like a daily self pleasure or pleasure practice. So it wasn't inherently masturbation, but it was a daily pleasure practice. And then I had this one morning where for all kinds of reasons I was running late and I didn't have time and I've da 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 and I think again because I was in this space where I had cleared so many other things that I was much more aware of what was happening and I sort of caught myself. I remember I was like walking in my bedroom and I sort of stopped and I was like, wait, how many times have I felt like so hurt by a man because he didn't have time for me, or like we were rushing, or his attention was elsewhere, or something else was more important? And here I am basically making all those same excuses to myself about why I can't do my pleasure practice. And I was like, okay. And I looked at the clock and I was like, I have exactly 10 minutes. Like, I actually do have 10 minutes. And then I really turned and just related to it like, if I was my own perfect lover right now, or perfect partner, however, how would I actually treat myself in these next 10 minutes? Would it be like a quickie and I would come, or would it be slow? Do I really want to be held and then like caressed? How do I want to be spoken to? Like, what is it? Can I give myself this 10 minutes? That again, and I hear this from women all the time. They're like, I don't actually even need that much. I just need their actual attention.
Hmm.
And there I was sort of dismissing, like, it's not enough time and I'm too busy and I have other things to do. And like, oh wait, how do I turn that attention towards myself? And it was profound. I mean, I cried. Like, it was so
Yeah.
profound to be with myself in that place.